Hi, I'm Joshua Hardy, and today we're going to talk about the U-2 aircraft, or the Dragon Lady, as we call it, U-2 aircraft. That was built in the 1950s by Skunk Works. Some of the characteristics on this aircraft is the wide or large wingspan and the width of the wingspan compared to the fuselage. This characteristic is used for when they're flying at high altitudes. There's less air up there. So the less air, the thinner the air up there, the more lift that he needs to fly. Also at the high altitudes, the pilot wears an astronaut suit, or a space suit as you will. So just in case that he loses cabin pressure, it'll inflate and keep him safe enough to survive to come down to regular altitude. This aircraft flies about 70,000 feet plus. It's twice as high as a 747. 747 flies about 35,000 feet. The aircraft was built on a bicycle-type landing gear. You got the front main and the rear. And as he comes down for approachment, the pilot cannot see past his astronaut suit and the lower into his cockpit. So when he comes down into a landing, we have to have chase cars. We usually use Pontiac GTOs nowadays. That drive up behind him running about 130, 140 miles an hour to guide him in at 14 feet, 10 feet, 6 feet, 3 feet, and then he lands. Once he lands on the bicycle running gear, it usually teeters back and forth until he levels it out, and then it falls to one side. The maintenance crews run out in a pickup truck and install the pogos on the left wing and the right wing. This stabilizes the aircraft so he can come into the taxi ramp, or excuse me, the parking ramp, and park. Other characteristics of this aircraft is at high altitudes he picks up imagery, or surveillance and reconnaissance, ISRs as we call it. High altitude ISR at that. We've got cameras on board, digital camera, and also an optical bar camera, which is a 35mm camera. The camera takes digital photos or wet film photos of the battlefield for the decision makers up in Washington, and also the warfighter on the ground. Some of the systems on this aircraft I can't really talk about, but we do have beyond line of sight capabilities. So when we're taking the digital photo, we can send a signal and it comes all the way back to the warfighter to let them know what is going on the ground. This aircraft was used in the late 1960s during the Cold War in Russia. During the 1960s, in 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis. This aircraft was one of the ones that flew over Cuba, taking pictures of the ships, and noticed that some of the missiles that were coming into Cuba, that was looking at Russia at the time, so that started the missile crisis. Also today we use it in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and that's for the warfighter to make sure that the coast is clear for him to go to sleep at night, or IEDs on the roadways in Afghanistan and Iraq. These aircraft are deployed all over the United States and the world. It's a really amazing aircraft. I liked working with it a lot. Lockheed Martin Skunk Works really put a lot of thought into this aircraft back in the 1950s. To go over a little bit more of the characteristics, elaborate on more of the characteristics, to wrap it up on the aircraft. The characteristics include the bicycle running gear, which we discussed, the pogos on the large wingspan, or the greater lift when it's up at 70,000 feet, the glider-like capability with a single engine point, the optical bar camera, which takes the wet film, and then the digital camera, which takes the digital photos. And the high flying missions that's done in the late 1960s and today's Iraqi war in Afghanistan. I hope you learned a little bit about my aircraft. I call it mine because I've worked it for about 9 years now. So I hope you have a good day. Thank you.